Well, shares of Tesla are declining today, despite the electric vehicle maker reporting a 12% increase in third quarter revenue on Wednesday. That was following two consecutive periods of decline. During the earnings call, CEO Elon Musk providing limited details on how Tesla plans to revive its core electric vehicle business, leaving some analysts uncertain about the company's near-term growth drivers. I want to welcome in Dan Ives, Global Head of Tech Research and Managing Director and Senior Equity Analyst at Wedbush Securities. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Now, let's get into this too. The end of the quarter coincided with those federal tax credits for electric vehicles expiring too. So maybe an uptick in sales. Was that as much as expected and what led to these gains?
Yeah, look, I mean, definitely a bit of a pull forward there, but look, you're seeing demand stabilize, and that's the reality, especially when it comes to China. I mean, China, actually, you're seeing an uptick. And I think that's the important thing. Look, this is all set in the stage. That's foundational, but the reality is this is an AI play going forward. Autonomous and robotics, that's the key why you want to own Tesla. That's why ultimately we think this is a stock that, is a $2 trillion market cap, as we go into 2026.
I want to get into that in a second, if we can, too, and in particular for AI. Tesla, for sure, is, facing competition. You mentioned from China, too. It's been pretty good, in other areas of the world, including Europe, Asia Pacific, too, as well. But as we get into that, too, Volkswagen also providing some competition. Is it going to continue to perform well there, or are we concerned?
No, I think you'll continue to have competition. And look, especially you're seeing around the world, EV demand has softened. And I think when it comes to the Tesla story, it's a shift because the focus now goes from, okay, that's foundational in terms of the EVs, called 10 million that you've seen in terms of cars since, the last decade. But now the future for Musk, future for Tesla, it's about autonomous robotics. I mean, that, from a physical AI play, that is what's going to be a golden chapter for Tesla.
Okay, so let's get into the AI too. There's been some concerns clearly about those businesses outside of the sector itself that can thrive. Given the current macroeconomic conditions too. You like this for the most part for AI because that is what Musk focused on a lot of that earnings call yesterday and didn't really provide any of those details like we've been talking about it getting back and making up for the losses.
But that's the future. And I think Musk, look, that's why right now, wartime CEO, in terms of leading Tesla into this next chapter of growth. When it comes to robotaxis, cyber cabs, and look, I think 30 to 35 cities in the next year. And this all leads to what's going to be like, look, when you think about AI from a consumer perspective, autonomous and robotics, those are the two biggest applications. And I think Tesla's going to own that market.
And do you think, is that timeline realistic for Musk too? You touch on it, right? 8 to 10 more metropolitan areas by the end of this year. They want to keep expanding into 2026. Is that realistic for you for this company right now? Or is that a bit of a pipe dream?
I think that's probably conservative, relative to 8 to 10 by the year end. Look, and then the focus is going into next year, 30 to 35 cities. Federal, in terms of that autonomous roadmap. Volume production. I mean, that's the Tesla story over the coming years. And that's why, Musk continues to be the biggest asset at Tesla.
And because he continues to focus on it too, right? And it is clearly it's there. But in the near term, as we talk about electric vehicles and whatnot, some of the losses that they did post yesterday, how long and what's the timeline for them, to really, and can they, I guess, become a powerhouse in the AI space to make up for this?
Look, I think this is going to be multitudes and multitudes of what we're looking at for Tesla today, relative to what could be ultimately millions when it comes to robotics, millions when it comes to cyber cabs. I mean, that's the future. And I think they're going through a transition, and it's definitely been choppy in terms of the core demand. But I think even though it'll be an emotional bull-bear story in terms of that battle, the future for Tesla, I think it's brighter today than it's ever been.
And do you think so? You're bullish on this too, right? Talking about, we get into $2 trillion, maybe even $3 trillion by the end of 2026 at this point. Shares are down. Other investors aren't there. So, you're saying AI is there and that's the biggest growth potential for you. But why aren't others on board with that too?
Well, I think investors, look, they've missed Tesla from, call it the last 5, 6 years. They missed a historical run, right? I mean, they continue to view as an auto company, not disruptive tech. The haters hate. They've been dead wrong in Tesla over the years. I think they'll be dead wrong in terms of doubting the autonomous roadmap over the coming years. And that's the path to 2 trillion, ultimately 3 trillion.
And for you to, touch on your thoughts on, when it is AI, and that's what's going to lead to it. They have the new AI5 chip, the Mega Pack, the Powerwall. Are those all these areas of development too that you believe are going to lead to that?
It's the ecosystem. I mean, that's what they're building, and that's why Musk is Tesla, Tesla is Musk, and that when you think about this AI revolution and the fourth industrial revolution that we're seeing, Tesla's going to play a massive role in it, just like Nvidia obviously does in terms on the chip side, just like Microsoft does in terms on the cloud side. Names like Palantir. When it comes to autonomous robotics, that's going to be Tesla.
Okay, Dan Ives, Global Head of Tech Research,
Thank you.
Managing Director, Senior Equity Analyst at Wedbush Securities. Thanks for this, Dan. Appreciate it.